We're going to talk a little bit about agriculture, more precisely something that most people here in East Texas have probably never heard of. And if you have, you probably don't know exactly what it is. Carbon farming. Now, by its simplest definition, carbon farming is a system of agricultural management that helps the land accumulate and store more greenhouse gases instead of releasing those gases into the atmosphere. But what does that mean exactly, and how is it done exactly? Well, to talk a little bit about that, we called in an expert on the subject, and joining us now from College Station right now is Eric Wanland. And Eric, you're with Texas A&M Forest Service, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's talk about this for a second. It's a sure bet that most people have not heard about this. What is carbon farming?
Yeah, so I'd be happy to elaborate a little bit on that. So carbon farming, if we're looking at it on, say, from the forestry perspective, carbon farming is using our East Texas forests or forests in general to pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and sequester it into both above ground biomass and below ground soil organic carbon. So what we're doing with forestry is generally already climate smart. We're planting trees and growing timber, which can then be converted into a long-term use wood product, locking that carbon away for a long period of time. So
And
yeah.
now I don't want to oversimplify this, but if people remember their basic biology from school, you know that trees emit oxygen and they take in carbon dioxide. I don't want to make it that simple, but is it simply the fact that whole forests are cut down sometimes in the name of business and that sort of thing? Is it as simple as being able to do carbon farming where you do replenish forests and things of that nature?
Yeah, so when it comes to sustainable forest management, trees are what we like to refer to as natural climate solutions. They're nature's most efficient carbon sucking machine out there. They're taking that CO2, that carbon out of the atmosphere, and they're using it through the process of photosynthesis to produce complex carbon molecules, what easily more known as sugar molecules. Those sugar molecules are what are the building blocks for the tree itself. But also those sugar molecules, part of them are released through the root system, and that helps to increase the soil organic carbon, i.e. a healthy above ground forest or a healthy crop. You're going to end up having a healthy soil organic carbon content due to the microbial populations below ground. This is not a general rule, but you can think about it. You can store as much carbon below ground in a forest just as much carbon is being stored above ground. So forest soils or crop soils are a very important component when it comes to carbon farming.
In an era where carbon has become a kind of a buzzword in some circles, you might say that this could be a wave of the future. For those that cry about a carbon footprint, it would make sense that this could be a wave of the future to actually, for anybody who has large tracts of land, it might be a substantial way for them to actually not only grow but profit off something like this.
Yeah, so in my world with forestry, I'm actually working on a project. It's called the Texas Climate Smart Initiative, and its sole purpose is to provide financial incentive payments to both farmers and forest landowners to implement and adopt climate smart practices, which look at producing an agricultural product, but B, maximizing the amount of carbon sequestration while growing that agricultural product. And so when it comes to the term of forestry, we're already planting trees, but there's practices that we can go above and beyond business as usual. So for one of them, we can look at using a high quality genetic tree seedling. And while we're through the planting process, we can try to minimize our carbon activity. So all the emissions that go into the planting process or the harvesting process, we can look at some modified approaches that minimize our carbon footprint through the rotation of that managing that crop. So There's a lot that we can also do on the agricultural side. We can look at cover cropping, reduced till or no till, or even adding soil amendments, such as biochar or mulch, which help to increase the soil health and fertility, but also to help lock away some of that carbon below ground too.
I'm guessing this is how the Forest Service is working to find solutions to a problem that people say continues to be a problem worldwide. We can do something about it in our own part of the world here. Obviously, whole forests being cut down in Brazil, we can't do much about that, but we can do something here. And I guess this is the first step, right?
Yes, sir. And so another thing that when you're looking at carbon farming is also um, some land managers like to also look into potentials for carbon credits because they're looking at maximizing the carbon sequestration potential on their land. They can also work with a project developer to certify, register, and even potentially sell some carbon credits on their land, and that can go towards helping to maintain proper land management practices.
And I'm guessing that the best hope for anybody who's involved in something like this is that this catches on and that people understand that this most people don't look at trees as crop, but they actually are. But this would be something that you would hope would catch on and people would see the wisdom in something like this.
Yes, it's very interesting to look at when you're looking at carbon farming or carbon sequestration or climate smart management practices. Ironically enough, you're helping to maximize carbon sequestration potential, but also people are only going to adopt it if it has an impact on their bottom dollar. So when it comes to agricultural practices or even forestry practices, when you're trying to maximize carbon sequestration potential and to improve your soil health and increase the soil organic carbon, a lot of these practices actually end up being a little bit more efficient. Or there's some cost assistance programs or incentive programs out there that will help these land managers to adopt and implement these practices. So they're only going to be adopted if it's going to be economically feasible for them. And a lot of the times when you start to adopt and implement these practices on the landscape, you're actually becoming a little bit more efficient with your operations. So one of the things that we can look at if you're looking at the stand establishment or reforestation is planting is when you go to replant your next crop or your next rotation of pine seedlings for commercial timber production, you can use a high quality seedling or an enhanced genetically improved pine seedling and plant it at a lower density, which then you can reduce or delay your first thinning interval. And if you can reduce or delay that, you can reduce the amount of emissions that you're going into that operation. So that I could go on a whole hour-long rabbit hole on stand density plantings.
Okay. Now, if people wanted to learn more, know more about this, how would they find out? Would they do it through the auspices of the Forest Service?
So you can reach out to any of your AgriLife research centers or your Texas A&M Forest Service. Is a good, excellent starting point to learn a little bit more information about it.
Okay.
And
Eric,
also,
thank you so much. Appreciate that. Eric Wanlin with the Texas A&M Forest Service. We appreciate you joining us today.
yes, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. And we'll have more on this story tonight on KLTV 7 News. For KLTV Web Extra, I'm Bob Holmark.